G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute. Yes, I've shaved and look completely different. This is Algared. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well.
It's the
It's
day.
good to see you not looking like a slovenly dog.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Looking more,
Thanks
looking
when
more
I know one.
normal and you know.
It's the day before CitizenCon. We're recording this probably a little later than most other people have,
Normal?
but Algared was working, so basically we had to give him time to actually have a look at the thing. So
Yeah.
we've had our initial impressions. This is essentially a buyer's guide for the A1 Spirit, and we'll obviously do the others as they come in because unlike other variants, it looks like very honestly they are going to fall in at different
Mm.
times. Right, with that, we'll cut it over to the game and tell you our thoughts. Now, I've got I'm going to call it the Burgundy wine skin. I don't know the actual name, but I'm sure Aggle will get it from me and tell me. But I really like this skin. It gives me massive Star Wars vibes, Algared. I don't know if it does the same for you. But yeah, it's my favorite.
I have to say I'm not a skin person, so I didn't. When I was looking at it, I didn't even bother to look at the skin. I just whatever.
Well, I brought them all and just tried them all, and then I melt them off, right? So I just buy with credit, and it's good for review purposes and stuff like that. So it's just, not everyone's skin person, as Algared said, but I like to find the best one and say, this is the one I recommend. So yeah.
And I got to admit, the red does look quite nice. So
yeah. So my initial impression of this is it is kind of like what the MSR should have been, Algared. Do you remember? I remember when you told me that day, and the way the MSR was originally about 2/3 of the length of the Corsair, and then when it came out, it was the length of the Corsair, but it was also heaps wider because it scaled the absolute crap out of it, literally. So this feels a lot more like what they intended. I think that MSR grew with all the things they added to it. So they're like, well, we now need another medium. And I also think, from my feeling, now you can tell me if you think I'm wrong here, I also think this is a bit of a tip of the hat to the shuttles that fly around Horizon, because there's a few people that was interested in that. I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Certainly the engine arrangement here really does have that feel of those shuttles.
Absolutely.
Certainly to me.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest throw to those shuttles, and even the general shape of the wings. But then it's kind of stretched for purpose. So I think it is a bit of a tip of a hat to that. And I think this is probably getting close to what the MSR was originally kind of pitched at and being size. And I can remember again, I do like that red light.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
That is a really nice addition.
I'm wondering if it's a Crusader thing, or is it going to come to a lot of different ships down the line? But hey, we'll have to wait and see. I think that's kind of what Algared and I are kind of saying there is this ship is definitely now the gold standard. So everything else will be, eventually it's the, the current best standard in the game is what gold standard is, where everything will eventually get that final balance pass and all be brought up to whatever that final one is. So this is now the cream of the crop. And give an example, the F8C is definitely not the cream of the crop because it didn't have any of the features this thing's got. Now I've been told by a few people on Reddit you can fit a whole bunch of stuff in the back of here. I have seen a Cyclone on here, but like I wouldn't do it in the final game. I think it would likely explode. I think the best you can kind of get is an STV.
I have put a Cyclone in the back, just a Cyclone, the regular Cyclone transport, with the wheels right up against the door. It still gets caught on the ramp and still gets pushed around on the ramp and bounces around. So I do not think that is built to take a Cyclone.
So what I wanted to actually show here is this actually comes with a military B drive, kind of similar to what happens with a Redeemer. So there's only literally one drive above this in the military stack. And I'm wondering down the line is, because we don't have a, if you go look at any of the, it just says what the component sizes are. It'll tell you what components are. But I'm suspecting that the E1 and the C1 won't get as good as components as this. Because
I think if you have a look, just above that, you can actually see it looks like the space where you'd have a component that goes in above the engine, and that would be where your jump drive slot is.
So, just these little three. Is that what you're talking about?
I think that's it. Because the idea was the jump drive component kind of slipped it in and works with the quantum drive. But I could be wrong, but that's my understanding of jump drives and quantum drives.
Yeah. So it's got some big components in it. This was touted as a Cutlass Black Killer, and I really think if you, I've got a complaint about it, but I've also got like I think it's keep it simple, stupid, or KISS, because this is actually realistically all those ships are tunnels, but this is like a big organized tunnel, and I don't know how else to explain that other than say it like that. But it just like you can tell the pipeline is maturing, and they're learning like the convenience of where to place certain things and stuff like that. So I'm not really into this ship as the A1, but this room really does dictate how the other two ships are going to be as well. And so, quite as Algared kind of said, if you put your Cyclone up in here, you could pretty much put 2 Cyclones in the back of this thing, which is very interesting because that's clearly a lot better than the Cutlass Black. Is there anything you want to add to that kind of, Algared?
Yeah, I like I said, I really don't think a Cyclone is what you want to be putting in the ship. I think if you put Cyclones in this, it's going to blow.
Not in this one. In the C1 is what I was saying.
But in the C1, you would hopefully be able to get 2 Cyclones in, and certainly be able to carry vehicles in it.
You can also see the maturing of
the lights.
What's it called? Building blocks, because they're now able to do MFDs in multiple sizes and stuff like that. Where I remember way back in the day, remember they were saying they were only going to have 2 or 3 different MFD sizes. Now they've got them like, well, look at this. There's a light switch up here with its own little mini. You know, it's all changed.
Well, you also look at those light switches. You've also got your grades of urgency. So you've got your regular lighting, your yellow lighting, and your red lighting.
I don't think this light switch works too well. I know that. Oh no, there he is. It did go yellow, and then the last one's red. So yeah.
Which is quite a nice little unique thing as well. So again, we're seeing that development of things in, as you said, the building blocks and the switches and stuff. So that's nice.
So the bombs on this have a very slow fire rate. They're very akin to the A2 bombs, about half as powerful, and that's just roughly. They do drop out fairly slowly, so it's more of a carpet bomber type of approach compared to that. So again, it's weapons. They'll change. They'll fix them. They'll make them better. I wouldn't be too worried about it.
This is a big tip of the hat to the Star Wars. You know, that bombers. You know, that ghastly, horrible movie.
Maybe I think it's their own thing personally, but yeah. One thing I do want to say, so this technically does have one more door between the cockpit and that of other ships, but there are times, and I don't know if it's going to work for me this time, but I'm going to try and show it. But usually when you walk in, it does that. So it doesn't really act like 2 doors. It acts more like one because they're open sequentially.
But also go back into that first section. Because here, you've actually got the avionics storage area, your gravity well set, your gravity, your life support, your communications, and avionics.
These 2 are empty right now, so I'm not going to bother opening them. But yeah, I as soon as I went to sit in this, I went, "What's with the Buddha?" I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's like one of those Chinese statues with the squinting eyes and the mouth and the beard. I don't know if you see it like I do, Algared, but
I hadn't, but yeah.
Yeah, once I mention it, most people can see it. All right, so we've got the 2 beds, which appears to be storage lockers above. I believe that. Yep, it is. Right, and then, now this is, me and Algared talked about this a few times, Algared. So, Algared says it could possibly be suit lockers. I think they're, escape pods, but until we actually know what they are, I'm not prepared to go either way. What I will say though, Algared, and I think you'll agree with me, is they have these nice little animations where they kind of slide forward, and then slide back. And I'm particularly partial to this weapons locker one because of the way I think it's very clever how the buttons it's the same button. I just really like that.
Very, very nice.
Little small details, that just add to it. Yeah.
And it's a location of that weapons locker that makes me think that is more a suit locker.
Maybe it's something special where it's some kind of hover suit because of this beam of light or something. But we haven't seen a suit locker,
and so we don't know
that you can fit in. But then again, it does fit kind of weirdly. So yeah,
and it does resemble, for me, from my memory, areas in the staff area where you've got what I think might be suit lockers or might be the escape pods, and it certainly looks like RV area in the Carrick where I think there might be the escape pods as well. So
yeah, so obviously a small food prep area with
yep.
what appears to be like a coffee machine and a microwave or something of that thing, a little fridge. So that's pretty good actually. I don't mind that. The toilet here that we're all used to by now at this point. Pretty standard stuff. I'm wondering if the beds are then possibly the what do you call it? The escape pods, which is also it actually says there. There we go. That
Oh, there
solves
you
the
go.
problem. Escape pod. So it is an escape pod. So that must be suit lockers because that says escape pod. That I spent all the time looking at this and never looked at the damn beds. Anyway, that solves that problem. Right. Obviously you can tell the cockpit is pretty close to the MSR. I don't know. You a fan of the cockpit, Algared, or is it?
Really didn't mind the cockpit. I like the view. I like the feel of it. I did feel as I was flying to one of the mining stations that it felt like a very speedy ship.
Yeah, it's really fast.
It really felt fast.
So obviously you can see the guns there at the midsection that pop up. I just want to notice those as you turn the ship on. You do get some lights on the front in the light blue and the lights at the back on the tail lights. Now, I want to come to some negatives, right? Because we don't normally hammer on ships, but this thing feels too overpowered to me. If it's meant to be compared to a Cutlass, right? And we're talking about the C1 here, right? Because this might be a little bit different for this one specifically. But right now, with the guns that this has got, it's very much lined up with the C1 and E1 having the same guns. Now, obviously, this has a gun turret on it, as does the Cutlass Black. Now, if I look at the Cutlass Black's weapons, it's essentially 6 size 2s, right? Now, this has size 2s on the turret, which was a change from the original concept, but then it has 4 size 3s. So that now means it's got 4 guns, 1 size up above the Cutlass, right? This thing also goes faster and picks up the top speed quicker than the Cutlass. So it's got everything, right?
Doesn't have missiles, does it?
It does have missiles, but it's only got 4 of them. So that is where the Cutlass comes back around, and the Cutlass have more missiles. So again, in the game right now, the Cutlass is definitely behind. But as Algared rightly points out, with the more missiles, and when missiles kind of do what they're meant to do, and that clearly to me and Algared is when armor comes around, it may change again. But right now, this thing is just like, for now, just cut its balls off. Like cut, and I'm talking about the Spirit, right? If the Spirit is very close to this, now obviously the components will change, but if it's got the same, well, obviously it doesn't have the turret, right? But then it's still got 4 size 3s versus 6 size 2s. I don't have an extra finger, but you get my point, Aaron. What's your response to that? Like, I think they've overgunned it.
My gut would be if it's the same size as a same pad size as a Cutlass. Given the Cutlasses are always, and Drake are always overgunned but under armored.
Yeah,
I would expect the Cutlass to outgun most things in its size.
That's my thought as well.
I get really peeved when the Cutlass has greater armor or greater, resistance and survivability than other ships of its size, because that seems to go against that lore aspect as well. But
yeah,
I also get triggered when ships that it's supposed to have more guns in it have more guns in it. Like it to me, it just seems incongruous.
So you can see there in the dark, it's got some really nice VTOL effects, and it's definitely got some nice lighting effects and stuff like that. I just didn't realize it was nighttime at Seraphim, so now we're going to go somewhere else.
Thank you.
But yeah, as Algared said, maybe we'll go somewhere and bomb something, Algared. What do you reckon? Real quick, yeah. But it's definitely got that crisper HUD that we saw on the F8 as well, Algared. It is a bit of a pancake. So as in what I mean by that, it's very, very flat. I do have one small gripe that I can't really show to you. Well, wait, maybe I can. Hang on. So
the reason it's a pancake, though, Execute, is it's not on stilts.
Yeah. Which is what the MSR is. But this is a small pet hate. You cannot see the landing gear when you're in the default camera. So you've got to do this every time, which is slightly annoying if you're a bit of a third-person cinema photographer type person like content creators. But, it's not everyone's problem. But some people will be annoyed by it. As Algared rightly pointed out, it is very fast, and it picks up the speed quite quickly. And I just wonder how much it's trod on both, not just both the Cutlass, but the Freelancer as well. So I now wonder, are they going back and up-gunning the Cutlass? Like, does that mean the Cutlass gets all size 3s as well? Does it mean what happens with the Freelancer? Things like that. So, yeah, it just makes me wonder what's due for them down the road.
I'd love for the Freelancers turret guns, the side guns, to actually be able to be remote controlled, so someone could take them and give them that 90-degree arc, but so they can not only fire forwards but also fire to the side, just like in the advertisement. But I think if the Cutlass has its guns upgraded, maybe I'll keep the Cutlass where it's at and say, well, the Cutlass now has better armor and better shielding, and that's why it's harder to kill. And so it's part of a rejigging of the balance and saying, well, because I know, even though we've always said, Cutlasses have paper thin armor, and they don't have, it was never they don't have armor. It was they have less armor compared to ships of the class. And their armor was paper thin compared to the other ships of its class. Not that it didn't have any.
Yeah. So I've actually got a bit of damage on this. I have no idea how, though, because I didn't hit anything. This was a fresh ship. It was freshly spawned. I don't know. Man, I almost want to go back and look at the video now, how that happened. Because I didn't hit anything.
I do like the look of that, though. That is very nice.
Yeah. So let's just get up to full speed. When I was doing this to Grimhex, like from warp to full speed, and it's not going to do it at full speed, obviously, because I'm in atmosphere, but it was literally like 4 or 5 seconds. It was really quick. We'll go into missile mode. I'm going to queue up 3 missiles, and I'm just going to go at... Actually, I'm going to drop the speed back down to SCM, just so you can see the gaps. And I'll just slow this down. Right, so at SCM, or roughly at. Right, so I'm going to hold the trigger down here, and just to show you how quickly, because they did not come out quickly. Very slow. So that's as fast as they'll fire, essentially. Yeah, and I'm going to have to turn around, or otherwise I'm going to...
You'd want a series of those bombing an area by the look of it.
Yeah. But, yeah, you can kind of see they do separate a bit. There is the circle thing when you're on the ground, which is exactly the same as the A2, but they are fairly loud. I didn't even check my altitude. Oh, it's not very high. They should explode pretty quick. But yeah, so that's at SCM speed. So you are going to have to go fairly slow if you want them to cover an area. So yeah. Again, if you want to do the missiles, you just right click and it changes to missiles, but as I pointed out to Algared earlier, there's only 4 of them. One really cool thing I will show you, Algared, I don't know if you noticed, but you can actually see the missiles there in the doors. And that is another really cool feature of this is, look at that, the little kind of skeletal movement of the doors is really cool.
Now that also makes me think. I didn't check out the missiles. And I'll be honest, I didn't check out the weapons. I was really looking at the components, the component spaces, the never-ending corridor. I actually did like. I still hate the never-ending corridor in the ship, but what I did like is that first section, which was a component room, and I liked the fact that you had life support, avionics, gravity, and what was the other one? And communication in one section, and then shields, and you had the components at least spread out a little bit, so you weren't just in one area. And I think that was a positive.
All right. As we kind of mentioned out before, it appeared that they had literally ripped the turret straight off the Scorpius and smashed on this thing, and they have done just that. There is a weird little button here for the lag pip, which I found is a bit of a bug because if you click the button here, it actually affects the pilot as well, not just your own pip. And turning power on is a bit of a pain in the butt. But once you... this is a bit of a bug. When you get in the remote turret, it's locked. It can't be moved. You actually have to move it, and you can usually... Yeah, see, it's not working now. You've actually got to do it manually at least once. and then after you've done it, it will then work like an actual turret. So now I can fire it where I couldn't before, and you can do the usual things as a turret. But then if I just press S, it'll actually, just like the Scorpius turret, go back around. This is obviously going to be most beneficial on the C1 Algared, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, look, I could see even definitely for any of the ships coming into land, but for the bomber, being able to have that turret down on the ground, adding firepower as you're dropping the bombs as well is, I think, is a bonus.
So I'm a bit complexed and disappointed with this turret, and I'll explain why. Because originally it had the 2 size 3s, and 2 of them were to the pilot, and then the pilot also had 2 size 2s. Now all the size 3s are on the pilot, and this turret is another pea shooter because it's just 2 size 2s. It falls back like that Vanguard turret, Algared. So it's just underwhelming, and realistically, let's be honest, you're not really going to be up on top. This turret is for when people are chasing you. That is going to be its strength, and 220 shots on cannons is a lot. Normally on cannons you'll have 20 to 40, but 220 tells me that this has too much power.
It's clearly one that was made to have bigger weapons rather than...
Exactly. And I think they've made the change at the last minute, and I'm hoping they fix it, because also, if you think about it, then the Spirit becomes more back in line with the Black, because that means it's got 2 size 2s and 2 size 3s where it would have 4 size 2s. So at least then it's getting closer to the Black.
But
I just get this impression, Algared, that it's they really wanted to get people to upgrade to this. If everyone's got the Cutlass Black, and it's the same thing with, there's a few ships that are content creators like ourselves and other people for years have recommended, and there's just too many people that own them. You can see that they want to spread that around a bit. But this just smells like it's going to get a nerf, or something's going to happen at some point. So for me, if I had a Cutlass Black and I was getting, I don't know, if you tell me if you agree with the Algared, but I'd just be picking up a CCU from the Cutlass Black to this, because the C1 will go up obviously in at least $10, so you can now go from the Black to the C1, and just wait. That would be my advice.
If you're considering going down the line of a Crusader ship over your Cutlass Black, I'd be looking at that, and I'd be looking, if you're after the versatility of a Cutlass in terms of weapons and cargo, you're looking at going a C1.
Yep.
But this does have a nice feel about it.
It really does.
I'm still a bit miffed that Crusader do bombers, and stuff. The other thing, as you can see with the missile doors opening there, my question is, are those bespoke missiles? So is it just a single rack? Can you change the rack and put different missiles in there?
I didn't check.
And if they are bespoke, that is also another step where the Cutlass Black and even the Freelancer are a step above this, because they can always change the missile racks that they're carrying. Whereas the ships with those bespoke missile racks just can't, the ones that you can't change. That limits them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's kind of where we'll kind of leave it there, Algared. For me, again, it's one of those ships that it's really good for new people that join the game, but veterans, again, it falls into that under $250 price tag, so it's like an earning game for me. I think you would agree with me on that, knowing you the way I do. But it's really nice. It really is a nice ship.
Yeah, for most people, it should be an earning game, but if you like it, then go for broke. The nice thing I did like about the weapon loadout you've got, is that where it sits at the moment, its position actually puts it between a Connie and the Cutlass, and so it may be that it's, even though it's in that Cutlass Freelancer size range, but it's actually almost in between. And if they are going that line with it, then you can understand why it's got more guns than a Cutlass. But then the Cutlass will have better advantages, and
so this is now a $200 ship, which also, you can get a C1 for almost half the price, which is, as I said, I think it's got components will be a part of it, but also it's a bomber. And I got to admit, it's kind of interesting that the most expensive one was the easiest to create. Kind of tells you a bit about how combat is a bit overrated. C1, I think, is where it's going to be at with these variants of ships. Obviously, when we review that, we'll go into detail more then. But for me, this is the least interesting of the three. For me.
Yeah.
And
I think.
Yeah.
And just going back to the Cutlass Spirit comparison, Cutlass is still $100 ship, and so even if a C1 has still that greater firepower, you're basically paying Cutlass price and more to get that ship. And so the balance works out in that sense. And as long as the cost in game still has that price difference, then I could cope with it being a better firepower, ship with better firepower than the Cutlass, because the Cutlass is a cheaper ship. But
well, time will tell. It's a very pretty ship, but do remember that every ship will eventually be brought up to the same level and same standard. And, it is definitely, what do you call it? The flavor of the month, so to speak. But it is really pretty. And I think that the first thing I said to Algared, they're going to sell a shit ton of these.
He did. The two things he said, the very first two things he said, it's absolutely gorgeous, really nice, and they're going to sell a crap ton.
Yeah, and they will. But yeah, again, have a bit of impulse control, guys. That's what I'm going to say, because I could just see this thing flying off the shelf.
Yeah, and it does have a nice look.
By the time you guys watch this video, I'm pretty much gonna put this up straight away, Algared. But within less than half a day, the Zeus is going to be around. So we're now getting 2 mediums that go in, and this has instantly got a competitor. And we don't know enough about the Zeus. We can only speculate on the variants. But if that thing goes in day one, or maybe it's tomorrow. So let's be honest and say it's probably in the next 48 hours. If that thing rings true, this has instantly got a competitor. And is this the one you're going to want to buy? I can't tell you that. But when the Zeus drops, me and Algared will definitely have a look at it.
And it'll be interesting to see how the Zeus compares to this. And I think that'd be a really good one, because they're both at the same point of manufacture, but the same period. That will give us an idea of where the other medium ships might get dragged.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you would agree with me. We basically want I know it's a bit more than rock, paper, scissors, but we want them, rock, paper, scissors, shotgun. We want all 4 of those medium ships to be able to compete with each other, but be balanced and
be different.
Yeah, exactly. So
you don't want them just to be the same ship with just a different look. That's boring as. You want them to have their different role.
All right. Let us know your thoughts on what you feel of the Spirit. I think it is definitely a gorgeous ship. I've seen everyone flying it around and kind of gushing over it. I do think this kind of is a new standard for Crusader, and I'd like to see this going forward. Algared, what would you like to hear from people in the comments below?
What do you think of the Spirit? What are your thoughts in terms of its narrow pancake shape? Is it just lacking stilts? How do you like the way the components are laid out? Could you suggest something of it? How do you feel about it having more firepower for the pilot than the turret?
Yeah.
All of those types of things that we usually talk about. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. It's either a nerf or they're upbringing the Cutlass at the end of the day, and it just something doesn't sit right with me. It's like it's a bait and switch somehow. And I'd love to know what their plans are, but we'll just have to wait and see. So yeah. All right, with that then, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and thank you to everyone that goes that extra mile on the end credits there on Patreon. He's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here. Take care.
Catch you in the next one. Enjoy CitizenCon.